Let's kick this thing off. We got to get this rolling. We got to get some energy going and listings and sales because everybody's tight everywhere. I saw the other day, or I read the other day, that sales year over year are down 53.9% nationally, which isn't a shocker because there's not a lot of inventory because people have low rates and they're staying in their houses. That's why this topic is so crucial. And we're going to be talking about CMAs today and how to use them effectively to increase not only your sales production, but your listing production. I think that's the key. So let's kick it off with the rock star of real estate, Gail DeMarco, and her bandmate, Valerie Turner's here. And these guys are rock stars from Sacramento. Gail's also getting into the St. Augustine market there in Florida. So they're going coast to coast. I'm going to start naming them the coast to coast girls. That's it. That's like going to be the coast to coast, right? But you guys share with people how you're using CMAs to really get listings and help your buyers understand the true value of homes when they're trying to purchase a place in this crazy market.
So we're going to give you three different perspectives. So I got Laura Daniels on here as well, who's been with me 8 years and who actually prepares my CMAs when I go out on a property. And so I have all those documents I'm going to be sharing in the chat. And then we get Val Turner, boots on the ground, that is, really bringing those CMAs and having those conversations with the buyers and sellers, because you actually work 50-50, right? So Val, what would you say before I go into the technical part?
So before we go into the technical part, I think that the basis of what we use them for and how we use them is a psychology tool, right? I mean, you have all these different types of clients. You have people who are very numbers based. You have people who are super analytical. Then you have your emotionally driven people. And so once you can kind of figure out what energy you're dealing with, and we have some preventative things that we use on the front end, jot forms, for example, where we know, is this appointment we're about to walk into going to be straight about numbers? Is it all about money? Is, the wife and the husband on the same page? Is it a divorce? Like, what are some of the basis that we're working with before we even get into the nitty gritty of the numbers? And so once I have that psychology edge, I can read the room and I can go in there and I can start asking the right questions to kind of probe which direction I need to go. First and foremost, we don't ever, Gail or myself, never walk into a house with a set price. And 90% of the listings that we take right now as a team, we actually don't have a set list price if we're taking it from a seller. We go in those appointments to solidify a working relationship, that you're going to hire us and you're going to work with us because of our systems, because of our strategies and our expertise, not because of the price that we tell you that we can sell your home for. And so we walk in there knowing a range, and we do discuss price, we discuss range, but sometimes, and it depends on the price point of the home, it's a $200,000 range. I mean, if you're looking at a $2 million listing, that price point could be a 1.9 or it could be a 2.4. And so anywhere in between, maybe your seller's number or might be your number. More recently, we've had a lot in that kind of $700,000, $800,000, and $900,000 range. And so the price points are kind of varying closer to $50,000 to $100,000 potential, give or take. And so I go in with a low and a high. So does Gail. Gail has a little bit more poker face approach when she does it. And she, has her numbers written down twice. She actually has a notepad and she has one number written down, and then she flips the page and she has another number written down. And once we've read the seller, sometimes you get a seller who's super like, no, you tell me your number. That's what your job is. Then Gail will say, okay, based on what we've learned, we have the low number or we have the high number. And so it just depends on where the conversation's going, which number we flip over. But for the most part, we go in with a range, and Laura can kind of fill you in on where that range comes from and what that looks like. It's a single page summary sheet. So if it comes down to it in the talking points of the conversation that they want to see,
if you want to open it up, just put it called the cheat sheet.
If they want to know exactly where the conversation's going, sometimes they cut you off mid-sentence. They got to move on. Husband's got to go back upstairs and get on a Zoom call. You have a range, and it's okay if they see that range because you're not giving them a set price. So we have the low and we have the high. Where it comes from is a combination of data. It's a combination of market conditions. Some of it's personal, what we know about the neighborhood, what we sold in the neighborhood. But the reality of it is an absolute psychology game, how you're going to use that data and use those tools to get the conversation moving the direction that you want it to about price.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, sometimes like Val and I be walking up to a house and we don't know what that price is going to be. For us that have been in this for a long enough time, we get that gut feeling. So when we walk in, we're like, man, we were way off. Now, Laura, she's really the poker face. She's, really the brains behind our organization because she's very conservative. So I always know I have a little giveaway. But if you dig into, and I put in 3 different things in the chat, so you can see exactly step by step how we go about creating a CMA and also a cheat sheet. That is my cover sheet when I'm going to the listing appointment. Of course, I don't give that to the seller, but it really gives me, like, 'cause sometimes we're running on, 2 appointments a day, 3 appointments a day in between. And I want to know that I just pick up my listing pack, I'm walking in, and we're pros, right? So no matter what that piece of paper says, at the end of the day, we're going to come up with a price that, makes sense to them, gets us the listing where we're not getting an overpriced listing. And are we taking overpriced listings? Hell yes. Of course we are. It's because it's all the trust game right now. Anybody who says they're going to walk away because they're not going to take an overpriced listing, sign a year contract with me and I'll take an overpriced listing, because right now inventory and trust are the name of the game. And here something I just learned yesterday, when you're doing comps, you have to take in consideration, what are the new builders giving them? Like, I just took a listing for $875, realizing that right next door, well, there's 3 empty lots, but custom, semi-custom builders, and they're giving them a free pool, $60,000. They're giving them $20,000 in design upgrades and paying closing costs. I am overpriced $75,000 right now. Had I not done the homework for new construction, because you're emailing them back and forth, having conversations like, what are your buyer incentives? Here in Florida, they are building like crazy. So you really need to, find out what else are those buyers looking at, right? Because you're not pricing it just for your seller, you're pricing it for the buyer, right? Buyers are so savvy, especially now. I feel sorry for anybody working with buyers, because they're hot, they're in, they're out, they're cold, they're scared, they're like, it's a really different animal. Like Val said, it's all about the psychology. Our only purpose when we're walking in there is to, one of us, to find something in common, is to really just break the ice. Being a wedding photographer, sometimes I had 5 minutes when the bridal party was always running late because they were hungover or whatever, 5 minutes to get everybody together and make them trust me and get there so I can get some natural photos and get everybody together, right? Who the hell wants to be with the photographer? I liken it to this, right? Right after they say I do, when we pull them out to the golf course to do sunsets, when they want to be drinking and partying. How many people you go into their home to do a listing presentation, one of them doesn't want to be there. You have got to make a connection, and you cannot have resting bitch face on. You have got to really make them feel comfortable and have that confidence and make them go, wow, okay, even though I wasn't interested and we have 3 more appointments, I like what she has to say. She's confident. Let's go. What else do you have to say? That's how you really take them down that price road.
And that's why you guys, that's why Gail, she's on fire, right? She's trying to compete with these new builders and other things in Florida. So she's going to throw in a free Peloton lesson, free pictures of the people once they buy the house. And this is the added bonus: if they buy from her at a decent price, a lunch with 30 minutes of lively banter with Gail DeMarco, which is priceless, right? Those are the 3 things she's throwing in. It's like, let's make a deal. But I like that. I like that you mentioned psychology and make that connection, and people feed off your excitement. You have to also know, and I'm sure Lurch is going to talk about this, you need to know, are they a D? Are they an I? Are they an S? Are they a C? What are their concerns? What's their motivation? Where are they moving to? And as you break down the CMA, you have to really walk them through it, because they're not used to doing that, you guys. They're nervous. They might have sold 1 house in the last 20 years.
And can I be 100% honest? Half the time, we don't pull out the CMA. We don't.
True.
Right? We don't. And the most important question I ask when I'm at, and how many times have I kicked you, Val, right? Because Val is going to come in lower.
Oh God, I have permanent bruises on my legs.
Like, shut up. So the most important question I ask when I'm sitting with a husband and wife, when we're in the conversation and I'm building up the energy, because energy creates energy, right? I am a magnet. I'm drawing them close to me. If you're there and you're just like, well, according to this and that, forget it. You lost. You already lost. You have got to be a magnet when you're in there. I will look at the wife like unexpectedly and go, so Val, what price won't you go below? And they always, she's like, she'll like be uncomfortable and then tell me, well, we were hoping one too. It's always the woman that will speak. It's the guy that wants, well, what do you think? What do you think? So that's an important question to ask. But honestly, when you get them energy, you get them, I try to go in there and disrupt their mind. Because when I'm in there, they're expecting the regular listing agent. How much is your commission? That's the thing on their mind. How much are you going to charge us? How much is it going to cost? And I will tell you, we send a pre-listing appointment, whole presentation, which I shared at the last listing presentation, the high note. Like I have a couple of my coaching clients on this call, and they know. So when we get there, I mean, what did the clients say to you, Val? You were going there, saw the high note. They talked about our marketing. What was the big question to them?
I mean, the latest one? Oh, I see you do a ton of marketing. You're probably not very negotiable on your commission. That was the latest one. The one before that was, I know who you are. I've seen enough. Where do I sign?
Yeah. And so, for my Mike Ferry days, I always used to do a pre-listing package drop off. I don't really do that. I do not do a net sheet. The reason I don't do a net sheet right now, I don't want them to look at that commission number. I don't want them to look at, I just want them to look at what I'm doing for marketing, what I've sold in the neighborhood, that sort of thing. So if I'm dealing with the data, and there's always the data, we deal with a lot of doctors and engineers. Those are our clients. They all come up from Silicon Valley, or in our area, we have a ton of doctors. But at the end of the day, it's like, I want them to know who we are. We have a great, during this chat, I will put it in there. Laura, can you go ahead and put it in the chat, one of our high notes for TDF for the selling? It's important to just set the stage. So when you walk in, they're like, oh, the badasses are here. That's what we want them to feel. Lori, do you have anything to add as far as when you're preparing a CMA that is like super important that you're looking at?
Having the job forms ahead of time. So one of the things too, we send the high note, and then she also asked them in the same email, like, hey, would you give me some information about, the property? Having that really, really helps, as far as like upgrades and, just a little history on the sellers too, for their motivation, so that you guys walk in, so we don't really try to underprice or overprice or put that range in there that's way off the mark. But I think that helps with the psychology as well for you guys.
Very important question we ask in that seller job form. We very rarely go on a listing appointment without this filled out. My old broker at Sotheby's used to say, Gail, the only thing that's missing here is their social security. How did you get all this information? And they'll tell you, is it a divorce? Hey, when I'm researching the comps, what price should I search within? They will always tell you 1.5. How did you come across this? Zillow. So it's just really, really good information to do your homework before you get there. Don't go there, fly by the seat of your pants. We know our neighborhoods so well, but here I don't. I spend a whole day just, and I like every day I'm going to different neighborhoods. I'm trying to really explore. So I am like a new agent in this market. So, one of the reasons we put in all these instructions when you're bringing on new agents to your team, they need to know a process. What is the process for looking at data? Of course, we're going to look at it, but Laura is so, it's so good at knowing the area between the two streets, how it could vary $100,000.
Right. This side of the street, that side of the street, view, no view.
As a new agent, you don't. So you have to do your homework.
In that homework too, I want to add on to that. It's so important, like absolutely non-negotiable, that you guys are calling the other listing agents for any of the comps that you are displaying in that CMA. Do not just print out data and take data on a CMA page. You need to have had a personal conversation with those listing agents and know how many offers did they have? Did the appraisal come in? What kind of issues did they see? Where did those 4 buyers come from? It's, I see that you had 4 offers on the MLS. Where did they come from? Were they all local? The more information that you have like that, the better of an expert in your field you look like in front of your seller when you're explaining to them that, hey, why did the house down the street that's in my own neighborhood with no pool sell for $900 and you're telling me mine's only worth $925? Well, because that one had a remodeled kitchen, and here's where the buyers came from. Their aunt and uncle live across the street, so part of it was an emotional purchase. So a certain percentage of that dollar amount that they paid towards that over asking offer was emotional. It wasn't strictly about the features of the home. So all that kind of stuff matters, and you can't figure that out with just internet data.
I love that, Val, and I like that point that you make, because right now in this market where inventory is tight, there's a lot of motivating factors for people, and just because you look at the listing on the MLS or look at the photos, it doesn't tell the whole story. You know, I reached out to an agent yesterday in San Diego because a friend of mine is putting his house on the market. His wife is an agent. She is joining us at EXP, which is great. And they're trying to get it set. But the comps in the neighborhood were showing anywhere from $1.3 million to $1.5 million. Well, another place just went pending. I called that agent and I just disclosed to her. I said, look, I'm not trying to get insight into your deal. I am listing a friend's house and I have to give them kind of direction on where we should be pricing it to make it appealing and competitive. I see that yours was on for $1.599 million. Can you tell me the story? She gave everything up and she was super nice, right? She told the story about the sellers wanted to price at $1.65 million. She wanted to price at $1.5 million based on the comps. They settled at $1.599 million. Their first weekend, their first open house, they had 102 people come through the open house.
Wow.
102. All of them are from Sacramento and Northern California. I had to throw Sacktown in there for you guys, but a lot of people from Northern California and out of state. Out of those 102 people, they got one offer. And it was just above full price from somebody else who was a great buyer, 50% down and so forth, right? So that's really getting the insight on all the comps that you're going to use because you want to know what the mentality was and what the mindset was of the people who are looking at it, you guys. It's not just numbers on a page with the CMA. It's not cut and dry right now. This is not an exact science. You can pinpoint it, and it's important to pinpoint it because people are going for loans, and as the rates go up, the banks get more conservative, not only with qualifying, but with the appraisals. So right now in California, if you sell a house above $1.5 million, they require 2 appraisals. And guess which one they're going to take? The lower appraisal. That's how they do it. And it can cost you a transaction. So you need to know your numbers and you need to know which direction the market is going and what you can get away with a low price number and a high price number. And then you better write in there after 2 weeks or 15 days or 20 days or 10 showings, it's got to drop to this and keep it moving.
And Pete, you're so right. When you're going over those numbers and you bring that up, say, you know, you have got to have that confidence and, you know, telling him, yeah, this is what an appraiser, you know, we use RPR a lot. We'll go off of that because when I first went to Silicon Valley and started working at my Sotheby's down there, I had talked to an appraiser because we always go on to RPR. And if it's under an acre and it has 5 stars or 3 stars, we want to find out why it's not a 5-star. Use that. So and I just point to them like, here's what the appraisers are looking at. So I want to get you more money, but at the end of the day, show me why we should get more. Let's talk about that because
so Laura, Gail, and Val, because I want to get to some other people too, and this is great stuff. What are you using software wise as a CMA?
Yeah, you guys.
Combination. I use Cloud CMA. I like Cloud CMA because it's just a prettier version. Then I can take the black and white MLS data and I put that into Cloud CMA, and then we will combine it with what Laura creates for us. So the cheat sheet that I think you shared. And then we also use the RPR printouts, and RPR is great because you can customize it. You can create a actual market survey update specific to their zip code. You can actually pull off market listings. So the MLS will show you everything that transacted online, and then RPR will pull into the equation anything that was tax roll and off market. So it may not have been a public sale.
Okay, cool. No, that's good. So I want to go from you guys to the new listing machine in Crown Point, the former #1 agent in Crown Point. Now he's the #2. He just got beat out, but he's trying to get back to #1.
Still #1.
Dennis, what are you using for CMA software? And share with everybody how many listings you've gotten in the last few months.
Probably, I think we got 5 listings in the last couple months just in this little neighborhood here of Crown Point. I really don't use the CMA software, Pete, at all. I mean, I haven't for years. So I think it's really important. There's a few things. Let me backtrack a little. So when you talk to a seller on the phone, you kind of want to find out what they're thinking as far as value goes. So the thing I always ask them is I always just say, hey, you know, what do you think your home's worth? And like Gail said, you know, if it's a guy, usually a guy be like, well, that's what I need you to know. And you tell me, that's why I'm hiring you. And then I'll say, well, no, seriously, if you just had to take a guess, what would you guess? And then they might say it again. And I say, if you can wave a magic wand, what would that number be? So I really want to get an idea of what, and I always get it out of them. There's not one time I haven't got it out of them, even if they resist. So you want to get that number just so you know kind of what they were thinking. So I really don't use a CMA, Pete. I just take out the three listings really. So I'll take out, I know the inventory really well. I'll take out 3 listings that sold. I'll take out one that's worse, one that's where's there should be, and one that's better. Okay. And I'll just show them to them basically. And if they resist on price, I'll just throw them in my car and just drive around to some of these listings and actually just show them. So I did that the other day. There was a lady, she thought her house was worth about 3.5 million. There's a house for 3 million that's sitting on the market. It's vacant. So I threw her in my car, drove to that house to let her walk around, and that got her back to reality really fast. And she's like, I'm so glad you did that. I was way off track. So, you know, I need to talk to my husband, and we need to reassess if we're going to do this at all, because, you know, we're way off on our numbers. So, you know, even if you can't get into the house, just throw them in your car and drive them around. We're making, depending on your price point, we could be making thousands of dollars per hour for our efforts when we're dealing with these sellers. So do the extra effort and throw them in your car and drive them around and just let them look for themselves, because a lot of them really don't know. And sometimes it's hard to see just with pictures and numbers on a piece of paper.
Yeah, I love that. And you're so true, because, you know, seeing something firsthand can really change somebody's mind, you know. And I want to address what Dennis just said. You guys, anybody who's doing CMAs out there, it's real easy for us to blurt out a number or say, this is the number we feel it should be, you know, because a lot of times that's your ego, right? I'm the pro. I'm going to tell you the way it is. I'm going to tell you how it should be. Now, a lot of sellers are batshit crazy, right? They just are. They're in love with their house and they're emotionally tied to it. And you have to take that emotion out of it and make it more of a business transaction and really try to kind of guide them. You know, one of the questions that I always ask that I get from Brian Moses is, as a seller, as somebody who wants to get their house sold, what price excites you? What price excites you? Ask them that question, because if you give the number, then you're going to be out. You know, that's the problem, is if you give a number that they're not in alignment with, then they go into Charlie Brown mode, I call it, where all they hear is womp, 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 womp after that. And the whole time they're thinking, this person doesn't believe in my house. They don't think it's worth what it is. That Dennis D'Souza guy just stole $400,000 out of my bank account because he doesn't think it's worth it. How can I get him the hell out of my house as soon as possible? Because I'm not going to go with him. And I don't want to have small talk or talk around things, because he's not going to convince me that it's worth this when I think it's worth that. So you have to be really careful with that. So I'll repeat it one more time. Ask the seller, as a seller who wants to get his house sold, what price excites you? What price would really excite you to get your house sold at? Just ask them that question and see what they say, because you need to know that up front. Ask them, I always say, from 1 to 10, how would you rate your house? They all say 7 or 8, you guys. I had one person in 30 years say an 11. I said, I didn't even know it went to an 11. I can't wait to get there. This is unreal, right? But usually they say 7 or 8. Say, okay, so what would make it a 10? Oh, if my husband allowed me to redo the master bathroom, right? That's a big one that a lot of the women say. I love that. There's something about master bathrooms with women that's like their go-to focal point. So I would say, that's great. Maybe I can convince them to do it, but I only want you to spend the money if we can get, you know, 1.5 times back. She's like, oh, you must know my husband. No, I don't, but I know how he's thinking now, right? So that's the deal. That's how you have to ask those types of questions. Great stuff, Dennis. Congrats on all that. That's why he's got the washing machine and dryer behind there, because all the money is going around. He's drying money there. That's it. I like that. All right, let's go over to Cam. Cam's, I know you're wearing your sunblock this week. It's got to be hot in Florida because the market's hot. So you've been, are you sponsored by Coppertone yet, or you know?
We're working on it. Yeah, we're working on that. That's
Tropic or somebody. We have to get you your own, you know, your own line of sunblock, just like Bobby has his own line of hair products.
That's it. We're, you know, that's next level stuff. I like thinking like that. That's funny. But I love the question. What price would excite you, Pete? That's a good one, man. So we do a couple things. I'm glad that we're doing CMAs today, because we do a couple things pre-listing, and then obviously during our listing presentation that are very different. So for our pre-listing, I will agree that you have to ask a number, you have to get a number, you have to be diligent on making sure that you figure out what they're expecting before you do anything. Because the first thing you don't want to do, like Pete was saying, is send them something and completely terrify them or scare them off. And that's obviously what you try to avoid. So when you're having that first conversation, when you're sending them, before you're sending them that pre-listing package, you need to make sure you get the number out of them and what they're expecting, what would excite them, and really, you know, what they want to sell the home for, whether that's realistic or not. So once you get that number, and once we have that, we send them out there our pre-listing package, and then we put them into HomeBot. HomeBot is a type of an RPR type home AI pricing tool that also keeps them up week after week. It allows them to see how the market's shifting, kind of doing a lot of self-digging. We have found that people love these systems that they can click on and kind of sit on their computer or tablet and see stuff about their home and see stuff about their neighborhood. And homebot.ai has a ton of stuff to look at, numbers to research, and kind of great information that our clients really love. So we use HomeBot AI for the pre-listing kind of CMA, or the pre-listing pricing. We call it kind of an understanding, so that when we get out there, the sellers should have an understanding of what the model or what the market is currently experiencing. Now, when we do this on HomeBot, if say the sellers told us on the phone they want 1.2 and HomeBot comes back at 950, we then have to go, whoa, before we send this to them, we need to see exactly where the system messed up, because you are actually able to go in and tailor the results that the client will end up receiving. So if you believe it's actually worth $1.2 million, maybe HomeBot was picking something up in a different community, or they were, doing something where it just wasn't making sense. You can go in and customize it so that the sellers are on track with what they're expecting. That's big, you guys, because you got to remember, you don't want to scare them off by giving a number that's incorrect. And if you use automated systems, there's a lot of them out there. They're not always correct. So you need to always verify it. Now, once we do have the listing presentation going on, we're going out and meeting them in person. We bring with us a traditional CMA. Well, before I go there, actually, firstly, we didn't used to send out any numbers before we went out in the presentation. We would always tell them, the price. We'll discuss that. It'll be one of the first things we discuss when we come out. In the last 4 years, we now send prices beforehand. It excites them. The numbers are higher typically than what they're expecting. So something to consider, you guys, is if you are in a downward trending market and the market does, start trending more downwards, it might be better to have the number presented to them at the listing presentation, so you do not get X'd out or, removed from contention before you even meet with them, or before you can build that rapport and see them in person. So that was something I wanted to point out. Now we do send the numbers. So once we're there in person, we have a CMA spreadsheet that we created during the Mike Ferry days way back when, that we still use. And it is amazing because it goes off of the appraisal value. So you go off appraisal value, list price, sales price, all of that. And when you combine those and you use a little bit of math, it gives you a number that you should expect. And you guys, this number, it's been spot on during the 2008 crash. It's been spot on during the 2021 boom. No matter what's going on, because you're pulling data, you're putting the recent pendings, the recent solds, everything into it. It is so accurate. And the cool part is that while you're filling out this spreadsheet, it actually helps you really become the expert, so that when you do go out and you do your listing presentation and you present it to them, you've went through and you've seen that what the appraisal value is by the county. You've seen what the sales price is of all of their competitors. You see what the asking price is, and without a shadow of a doubt that there is nobody that is more knowledgeable about their home and their community. And again, we add about 4 or 5 actives, 3 pendings, 3 or 4 solds if we can find them. It's not like you're doing a ton, but you're doing more work than all the agents that just pull it up on RPR or something that way, and it has an automated report. This gives you the knowledge of, no, I looked at that home on the MLS, or I looked at the home, and this is what it tells you. Dennis, I love the fact that you said, we can take people out and we'll just show them. That is so powerful, you guys, is that if you have the ability to do that, you can instantly squash any kind of uncertainty by just showing them a home right down the street that compares or is much nicer. But what we found though, you guys, is once you're out there and you're going over the client presentation, how you present it and how you preface it before you go over it is extremely important. When we sit down, I explain to them, you guys, this is an accurate like appraisal approach that we're using. The appraisal data, we're using, the sales prices, we're using all of this stuff. I have no opinion on this. It's not me personal. I hate that. And I really go into that is, sometimes these agents just guess at a number. We can't do that. I've never done that. We use an actual number mathematical system. And with our spreadsheet, it's just absolutely fantastic. And that's really our big two things. With that said, you guys.
So Cam, where do you get the appraisal values from?
We have them on our property values, property evaluation website for the Lee County property appraisers or Collier County property appraisers. They're public
like on the tax site. So you're pulling up the tax bill and seeing the assessment.
Exactly. And the reason that works is, well, that number isn't 100% the value, right? It isn't, because they couldn't tax at 100% value. It's 100% the same between all the different homes that you're comparing it. And it gives you just an excellent representation that, the home down the street was appraised at this based on the appraiser, and your home is appraised at this, right? Because the appraiser is appraising you and the home down the street the same. They use the same formula. It gives you a really clear number. And then with a little bit of math of, this divided by this gives you our percentage, and it's spot on, man. And it crushes because it's recent. It's, if the market's crazy going up, it's going to be crazy going up too. If the market's crashing and it's, nothing is sold in 6 months, it reflects that. And it really shows that, the prices are going down, and the people can see it because it's all based on real numbers that the tax assessor gives them, not some just, made up numbers that a realtor put on a spreadsheet. So that's why it's really valuable. With that said, you guys, hold on, Pete, real quick. I just want to finish up. With that said, these days, we don't use these numbers as much. If we come in and the people already want to hire us based on our social media or stuff they see, we just sign the contract. So you guys, if you go in and, you have the CMA and you got all this presentation and they're like ready to sign, just shut up, sign the contract, smile, go back to your office, because you don't need to go through it all. I've done that, and we've all done that, where you get into that. I want to show everything I prepared. You only use these tools when there's objections, when they maybe not wanting to sign, when you're competing with other agents. That's when you break out these tools to show that you're the expert, that show that you can help them more. And that really gives you those advantages. These days, you guys, though, we're leading with the marketing, like Gail was saying, we're leading with the amazing marketing doing that they see before they even invite us out. So go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, it's funny. Your Zoom, the video of your Zoom and your voice is off. So it's like a bad Mexican soap opera. It's pretty funny. And so that's what was throwing me off. That's why I kept trying to cut in, because I didn't know if you were done, because you're moving, your mouth is moving. What do you use for CMA software? What's your go-to CMA software right now?
So our CMA software, like I said, for internet stuff, we use homebot.ai. And then obviously all of the big CRM. So it doesn't matter if you're on KV Core, Boomtown, Chime, all of them, they have a built-in home evaluation tool that some of them are pretty good these days, and you can get them set up. With that said, though, like I said, don't send out the numbers before you get the expectations from the client. And then you make sure that the numbers that the automated systems that are online they don't X you out. That's a very important, because I've had these numbers come up hundreds of thousands of dollars off when that would obviously not work. So if it comes off up, it's not work, don't send it. Go back, do a custom search form, and that works better. So keep that in mind.
Arriba, vaya con Dios. Okay, I like that. All right, we're going to move on to Lurch and talk to him about his CMAs and how he sets those up and how does he approach it with his future listings.
First of all, everything that everybody said is spot on. So I'm going to add to it a little different. I'm old school. I want to look at it, touch it, feel it myself. I'm not having somebody else do it. I get a gut. I know where I'm at. I'm the one that's making the decision. So when the hatchet falls, it's falling on me and my dumb mistake or my right mistakes in my education of where I'm at. So everybody's different. And I'm not a numbers guy. I just know what I know, and that's where I come from. One of the biggest things that we've all talked about, and I do a lot of it, I ask a lot of questions before I get there. You don't go into a doctor's appointment and the doctor starts diagnosing you until they ask you questions. So I say to them all the time, before we even talk about setting an appointment, can we talk about a couple things? Because I got to get to know what's going on. You might not need to sell. You may not. I need to hear what's happening. And then I explain. It's like going to the doctors. You could walk in here. I can tell you to get undressed and I start poking around and guess, or we can try to figure out where we're going. How do you like to do it? I could also come in to your house, sit there, take your time and do a dog and pony show of how great I am. Or I can roll my sleeves up, sit down, and work with you under the hood of this and figure out where you need to be. What are your needs, not what mine is. My resume will read what I am. That's my past. My future is only as good as what I'm doing presently. And I kind of lay that game plan. I also ask him, question, are you interviewing other agents? Stop talking. Make them uncomfortable. They're going to say, I don't know that agent. And then they start laughing. They don't want to tell you to, come on, just tell me. If you are, you are. It's okay. I understand you're dating right now. We're not married. We're not going to the altar. Let me know who else I'm competing against. So if you like roses, I bring you roses. Because if you like tulips, I'm not going to bring you roses. What I'm trying to do is break them down and understand, one, do I have competition? Two, who my competition is. Because then I know how to play with them because I know who the players are I'm playing with. And I know their moves. I strategically try to find it. Then I also know I got to know the homework on all the houses that are around, whether I've been in them or not. You need to study them. You need to find some unique points. Look at the videos, look at these houses. So when you're in there saying, by the way, this house had this green kitchen, or by the way, oh no, they didn't. Oh yes, it did. Go into some points that nobody would know unless you go 3 deep on the homework that you've done, like talking to other agents. Get the emotional knowledge of, all right? And then always ask, on a scale of 1 to 10, that you have to move. The world's coming to an end. Where are you and why?
I love
And then
that.
stop talking.
Yeah.
So the numbers are numbers. We can all figure numbers out. I'm not that analytical. I just know what I'm looking at and I do it. And I never bring up and throw up on them with it because I ask them, are you a numbers person or are you a bullet point person? Do you like me to candy coat it or do you want it right between the eyes? I can do any way you want it. Tell me how you want it. And by the way, just like Dennis does it, we use Homebeat. So the second we get their email, we set them up on Homebeat, goes to them. They instantly start setting up their search. We don't set it up. They do it. So now we're able to see how they're manipulating and working it. So we're getting a feel. And I always ask them, what price do you think the house is going to sell at? Not what you want. Where do you think it's going to sell? Well, that's what I'm asking you. Look, I'm only wondering whether I have to bring the electric paddles because you might need to be resuscitated after I tell you the truth. Because you're getting more than that or you're getting less, but I won't know until I'm there. So little way I do it. And the hands are part of it.
What are you using as CMA software?
We're using Homebeat to look at it. I'll be honest, I just started using RPR. I didn't even know it existed. I know how to go into the multiple. I know how to look at what I'm looking at. I know how to look at where I'm at. We don't go big on square footages because our houses vary. We might go from a Cape Cod to a single in a matter of a block. You're in a state house, or you're here. So Zillow's off, everybody's off because all they do is the pinpoints. So again, I haven't used a lot. I'm old school. I sit there, I take 20 minutes, a half hour, I go through it. I've known it so long, I know how to do it. If you're younger, you're new to the business, you should be spending more time. But when you don't have it, it's like when you go in to do an operation, you know where the spleen is. You know where this is. You're not going to go in moving things around. You know your animal if you've been around them.
And the other thing too, you guys got to remember too, if you aren't familiar with the comps, get in your car and go drive by them and see how they compare to the subject property. You never know. There may be a vacant lot next door. Somebody next door might have an RV in the yard. Somebody might have Honda up on blocks. You never know. So you got to look at, is there going to be any functional obsolescence or economic obsolescence that can affect the value of that property? You don't want to show up and have an oh shit moment. Oh shit, I didn't see this, or I wasn't familiar with that. You're going to get paid a lot of money to get that listing and sell it. So put in the time that you need to really understand the ins and outs. Okay, that's great stuff, Lurchy.
Also, know your
townships,
and regulations on your use and occupancy. Some agents won't. So when I go in, I'm like, oh, by the way, you've been talking to other agents. They might have told you about the UNO. Even if there's nothing there, they're like, no, they didn't. You want to crack the credibility of somebody else of saying something that somebody else didn't do. Bring the elephant out by bringing knowledge of things that most people won't bring up. Done. Next.
That's awesome. Good stuff. Let's go to the big daddy, Randy Z. Daddy number 2. He's got 2 girls taking care of him now for the rest of his life. Randy Z, talk to me about how you guys are doing CMAs and what do you do?
Yeah. So 2 things. Since I deal with a lot of investors. So with my investor clients, I literally just pull up the MLS and I actually let them see the agent view. I don't care that they see who the listing agents are. That doesn't bother me. I have my trust built with them. These are, clients of mine that we do usually multiple transactions per year, or even if it's a first-time listing with this investor, I probably already have pretty big rapport built with them. So the reason I want them to see the agent view, because as you guys know, a lot of the hidden information that's really good information is also in the private remarks that only us agents can see. Okay. So the client view will not show that. So I really want the investors to see what's going on and why certain properties may be sold for whatever price, because of maybe the potential motivation, maybe because it was a trust sale, whatever the case might be. There are certain hidden things that might be like a hidden message, I would say, within the private remarks. But with my traditional clients, I pull up the client view, and I'm like several of you, I don't use actually any software. I don't enjoy using RPR. I don't get into those. I know Brian is a huge fan for RPR, so we'll hear from Brian soon. I just literally want to pull up the MLS, but I prepare myself prior of which ones I feel are the best comps that I want to review with them. So I don't just like do the, map view over there and do it with them. I actually pull the ones that I believe are the best ones. But before I even start opening them up, I first educate them on why it's important to understand how the values have fluctuated over the last year or so, because I know they're looking at like what we know, Zillow's, Redfin's estimates, all of those that pulls the data from 6, 7, 8 months. And the market changes quite a bit in San Diego and probably across the country now, like never before, right? So I would educate them, look, especially if we were looking at something last November, I'd be like, look, we need to actually not look at anything that sold prior to, let's say, at that point was probably prior to August, right? We don't want to even look at that. We got to look at right now, like maybe August 1st on September, and that's it. Like only 2-3 months, because the market changed this much and the market dropped, let's say 10%. Like I'm going to actually give them real data, market data. So I was like, so if we looked at a comp from April or May, you might assume your property is worth 10% more. And that would be a valid assumptions, because you could say, well, it's in the last 6 months and that's what appraisers do. However, not when the market fluctuates like it's been in the last few, over the last 12 months. So if I'm sitting with them today, I actually have better news for them now, because I'd be like, look, we actually don't want to look at the comps from September and August, October, November, and December, because market actually dropped 10 to 15% in our area from its peak in May of last year. So those comps are actually going to sway you downward, right? In terms of what you feel your value is. So let's only focus on about January 15th on till about now, and let's see where we fall. Knowing that we've had appreciation from January to March through April and May. So if we have comps closer to now, that will probably be the value we're going to focus in on more. So I really go deep into premising and setting the right expectations more than anything, because I might only pull up 4 comparables. And then they'll be like, well, but I've seen this house down the street that sold for, 100,000 more. I'm like, okay, well, let's see when it sold. Oh, it sold in blah, 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 like 6 months ago, right? Like, well, that was a different market, right? So now I can go and basically use that as an anchor anytime they bring up a comp that they've been researching and like putting all of their emphasis on, but it's no longer valid because I already told them why prior to that, instead of getting caught in the middle of showing the 3-4 properties you pulled, and then you getting caught and you said no expectations, and now you have to go kind of backwards and explain why you did what you did. So that's really, I keep it really simple. As long as you understand your market and you explain and set the expectations, you should really only look at 3-4 comps, the most recent within the last 30 days, if you can, ideally. I mean, in a perfect world, give me only comps from 30 days. That's it, right? But I would also say, look, I also called these 2 pendings, right? And why did I do that? Well, because that's where the market is going, right? And I put a lot of emphasis on the pendings. I was like, and here's where these 2 are pending at. They didn't give me the exact number. A lot of agents are, they don't want to give away their number. They think like I'm trying to shop, their listing around. But the truth is, most will. And here's what I found out, right? And I actually know this agent and I know that agent, right? So I start throwing in a little bit of credibility and of my relationship capital in there, right? Just as a little bonus. But I really wanted to understand where we're going as well. So if it's trending downwards, well, I better freaking know where those prices are pending, because if you take a listing and you sell them on the value that's $1 million and the next pending one is at 950, well, good luck. Now you shot yourself in the foot, and now you're going to have to talk about a price reduction within 2 weeks, right? Doesn't make you look good. You should have known that that one is pending below that list price, right? So that's all I do. And I would finish on this. I despise when I see agents use literally like a 1-page CMA with just the list of the comps and per square foot, and they only look per square foot, it's there. I'm like, what does that tell you? That tells me nothing. I want to see the inside photos. I want to talk to the listing agent, get the scoop like you guys are talking about. Like, I want to understand it from beginning to the end. Like, if I just look at the per square foot, that tells me nothing. And then you have to adjust, because I tell them, like, most people don't even know, the higher the square footage of a home, the less it's going to sell on a per square foot basis. The smaller square footage of the home, the higher it's going to sell on the per square foot basis. Good luck adjusting that on that list with them. Like, it's impossible unless you find the exact size of a property with the exact same square footage. Well, then maybe we can argue. But then what if I look at the photos and one is completely different than the other? Well, now you shot yourself again. So anyway, I despise it. I would suggest you guys don't use it, but that's it. I'll shut up. Brian, go.
I love that. That's good stuff. Brian, you got 5 minutes. Go, buddy.
All right. Well, first of all, the best listing presentation is the one you win, right? So yeah, if you've had success, go back, be a student of the industry. Why did you win that last one? What did you do right? What did you do? There's a lot of success in your past, and things are changing. So why I'm saying that is what I'm doing today is completely different what I did in 1985 when I got into this business. But I had to go to appraisal school to get my real estate license. I don't know about you guys, but I had to go to college for 6 months just to get the appraisal class out of the way to qualify to take my real estate exam. That's how long ago that was. And none of that has changed. Everything is the same. That's why I like RPR. We've heard about it from several of you now. RPR was created by appraisers for desktop reviews during the market crash. So there was all these asset managers trying to figure out what to do with short sales. Well, they created RPR, and that was done for the sake of desktop reviews. So if you get really, really skilled at doing desktop reviews, I can guarantee you what you're going to come up with is a CMA through RPR back. And I back check mine. So I do a normal MLS CMA comp. I start with a satellite view inside the zip code of the property I'm going to list. And I drill it down until I understand. And I'm the expert. I want to come in and just meet with a seller. I want to be an expert, like we heard Dennis say and a few others say. You want to be the expert. When you walk in so skilled at working with RPR, what I've been able to do is I take all the comps in the MLS. I pick out my best ones that determine the real value of the property based upon a real estate view. I look at the confidential remarks, like Randy said. I look to see if there were concessions. I look to see if the buyer paid over the appraisal value. We're in that market. Did it appraise for that? But here's the good news. Anytime a property sells and a buyer waives the appraisal and they close higher Well, guess what? That establishes a new comp. Now that is a comp that appraisers actually use going forward, which raises values. If the same thing happens, if it drops, there was a big concession. Now all of a sudden you've got a concession that's going to drop the value. So you have to be calling these people, call the pendings, everything we heard. But here's the bottom line. I like to do this today. This is exactly what I do. Pete, this is my CMA. I do it in front of my client. I'm so convinced. I walk in with my laptop. I've already pre-done it. I've looked at it. I know exactly what they're going to see. And I tell them, this is the number I can defend. This is the number I feel comfortable that I can defend, because we don't know if you're going to get a VA buyer or an all cash buyer waiving the appraisal. But I need to defend a number, and then we're going to see what the market's going to do with that number. RPR allows me to put up a number that an appraiser is going to, I've never once lost a deal with an appraisal using RPR. Randy and I listed a property that was flat out 38 offers a while back and way over the appraisal value, but that's the market we're in. But I could defend a number that the seller listed the property at. I just did one 3 weeks ago. It's already closed. It was 665. I could defend that number. We got 705. Then we had some reductions. We got 700, and then all of a sudden we just closed at 680 in 8 days, way above appraisal. We didn't have to defend the number. It was cash, and that buyer waived the appraisal. So that's the new comp for the neighbors. So we just established a new value. I just did one yesterday. All I did was I walked in. I love to see the property, and I let them know I need to see the property before I can actually come up with an appraisal value, because I need to see the condition. I need to walk it. Show me the things, right? And I love coming soon. I don't know if you have that, but we do. It's in our MLS. I let my clients know 3 things. 1, we need to go with a coming soon 2-week so I can get the photos and we can get the termite report. My TC is going to get all of your paperwork done. We're going to do your sellers and TDS, all disclosures, everything done during that 2-week, because the best buyers are not the buyers who see it in the first couple days. The best buyers are the ones who are at work. They wait and go do their due diligence. They drive by, and in those 2 weeks, you create so much momentum that when the property hits the market, your best buyers are there. They're ready to go. Your seller's ready. We have our number, and now we're getting in a bidding war, and that's the market we're in. And now we don't have to worry about where we're going, because I just get sellers to price it at the number we can defend and then let the market bring it.
Love it. It's good stuff. So I'll take the last 3 minutes. Great stuff, Brian. If you want to encompass everything that everybody's saying, the software I use for CMAs is flashcma.com. Now, it's near and dear to my heart because I'm one of the owners, but I've been using this for years, you guys. It does a real appraisal-like evaluation, just like an appraiser would do. It adds and subtracts based on not only the comps, but the size of the lot, the view, upgrades like flooring, kitchens, baths, solar panels, pools, all these different things. It has an algorithm that adjusts it based on your area, just like an appraiser will do. So not only does it give you a really good understanding of where that house would officially appraise for, but it also validates the sales price. It validates the price that you're going to end up at, and it validates it to the bank. No other CMA software out there does that. They all do it price per square foot, and that is going to misrepresent to the sellers. And I know that's kind of a harsh word, but it's reality of what they can expect to get. And that's why you see a lot of overpriced listings. You see a lot of out of the ordinary prices when people are trying to price it. And I use that as my base level. And I say anything above this is gravy, because who doesn't like gravy? I love gravy, right? I'm a gravy guy, especially at Thanksgiving. I love gravy. So anything above that price is gravy. Then I share with them based on the low and high price, where to price it competitively, because it comes down to motivation, their timeline, and what they're trying to achieve or where they're trying to go. So I ask a lot of questions ahead of time. I never ask somebody, hey, what's your bottom price? I don't want to know that. So how do I ask that question? I say, listen, 22% of the homes right now in the greater San Diego area have been selling for all cash. So if a cash buyer comes and offers you $1.5 million for your house, would you accept that cash price? They're going to immediately say no, because I start low. I already have an understanding or a range where their house will fit in based on the research I've done. So I say, if somebody comes in, close in 10 days, no inspections, no appraisal, no financing contingency, $1.5 million, would you accept it? Brian, say no.
No,
Okay, great. If somebody came at $1.5 million, Brian, close in 10 days, all cash, no contingencies, would you accept it? Say no.
no,
$1.6 million, all cash, close in 10 days, say maybe.
with Dennis's car, yes.
Okay, so you need the car involved too. So right there, I know that their bottom line is $1.6 million. In their mind, they're saying, my house is probably worth $1.6 million. I hope to get $1.7 million. That's how consumers think. So that's how you ask that question prior to going in with the CMA, instead of saying, so what's your bottom line? Oh, well, you tell me, you're the expert. That's why I have you here. You give me the number. And like I said, that's a tough thing to answer, because they're going to shut down on you if you don't do it right. So I'll leave you with that, you guys. Flash CMA is my secret weapon. We're trying to get that nationwide. It does appraisal-like evaluations. And guess what? When I meet the appraiser at the house, when I have a listing and I meet every appraiser, I say, listen, I'm going to give you an appraisal-like evaluation. I don't know if it'll help you or not, but you might want to check it out. Every single appraiser says, holy shit, where did you get this from? I've never seen anything like that. Because you know why? I just saved them tens of hours, if not their weekend, because I already just did their job for them. So they're more apt to bring in my appraisal for the bank than anybody else. So keep that in mind. Listen, use these things. You should be doing a CMA every 21 days on your properties right now. You should be doing a CMA every time somebody is considering making an offer as a buyer on a property. So you can really map it out and show them. But don't do price per square foot. That's why I'm not a big fan of some of the other CMAs, because they all do it the same way. It's pretty pictures. There's no substance. There's no reality to it. This is reality. All right. Have a great weekend. Invite everybody next week. I'll figure out what our topic is. I know we have it all mapped out, but it's going to be a great panel. Awesome stuff, you guys. Great job. Thank you for everybody joining us. Have a successful weekend. Talk to you next week.